So tonight we're going to be live on Instagram. So we're
Right.
live and want to welcome our audience in. And so we are streaming on Facebook. We're on YouTube and we're also on Instagram. So go ahead and tell the younger generation if they need to join us on Instagram. We're there. We want to welcome everyone. And of course, we're here on Thursday night, Thriving Thursday Live. We're growing our audience. And if you haven't, hit that like. If you haven't subscribed, it's a great opportunity to go ahead and subscribe. Your participation, your support means so much to us to help us, do our job. Our job is to reach as many people as we can, empower our community. And actually, we're here to help individuals thrive. And of course, we love to share our wealth in reference to home ownership. It's not all about getting into the home, it's also sustaining a home. So the dream of home ownership and home ownership for some may not even be purchase a home. It could be a stable rental. And so home ownership, it is shelter. And so we're going to be talking about that. So tonight we have our special guest again tonight. Ross Levine is here. And but before we get to Ross, hold on, Ross.
All right.
Charlene, she's gonna turn flips if I don't give her opportunity to talk. Go ahead, Charlene. Welcome my audience.
He's not telling the truth at all. I just had some ice cream, so that is not true. I'm old, so dairy don't necessarily work that well with me no more. But at any rate, let's get into it, y'all. Thank you so much for joining us for our Thriving Thursday. Before we get to our dynamic speaker or the person that we're going to have this great conversation with tonight, let me tell you a little bit about First Home Alliance. We are a HUD-approved housing counseling agency established by our president and founder, Mr. Larry J. Laws. Where the inception come from, his mother purchased her first home at the age of 65, and so that intrigued him. He decided to start the nonprofit. Our mission is to increase home ownership to low to moderate income family, along with serving our veteran communities. Let me stick that word sustainable up in there, especially right now. Sustainable home ownership to low to moderate income families. What are the services that First Home Alliance provide? We provide pre-purchase counseling as well as education. The counseling, I want to buy a house. I Googled and I'm stuck. So First Home Alliance will assign a HUD-approved housing counselor to you to help you really talk about your situation. A lot of times the education, which I'll get into, is a general overview, but the one-on-one is specifically about the individual and their specific situation. And so that is our pre-purchase counseling. Education is our first-time homebuyers class. Our next one is going to be April 18th at the McCourt Building in Woodbridge. And that's where we're going to talk to you about the overview of the home buying process. We have experts in their industries that come out and let you know what to expect in that process. We also offer loss mitigation services, which we're going to dive in today and talk about some. Last week we talked about sustainable. This week we're going to talk about and we talked about curable. And this week we're going to talk about incurable situations. But loss mitigation. I own a home. I want to keep it or I can't keep it. I need guidance. First Home Alliance acts as an advocate to talk to you, your servicer. Number one thing, guys, is to make sure that you do not experience foreclosure. And so also offer rental counseling, debt budget management, and also emergency preparedness. Services are provided in the DC, Virginia, Maryland area, along with the south side of Chicago. Doesn't matter where you're located. If you got the internet and you have a phone, First Home Alliance can assist. So if any of the services that I just went over piqued your interest, listen to the end of this conversation as to how you can get in contact with us and start receiving those services. Larry, back to you. So he's itching to die. He's dying to talk now. So now I'm going to throw the mic back to him.
Okay. I was going to tell Charlene, don't bring our audience down too deep, okay? Because this can drain you, and so we need to keep on the upbeat because on this is the part we like I say, we like to see sustainability. This is our dream if home ownership, and so we want to understand that sometime you may be in a situation. I like to home ownership. You actually go into a long-term contract, and so we sign contracts all the time, agreements. Whether there's rental contracts, whether there's a credit, it could be short-term, it could be long-term, it could be whatever the situation may be. But sometimes you need to renegotiate. So don't always think that it's a failure. because that's why you have a contract. It's an offer, and that's where you start. That's where you start. So remember, in real estate transaction, everything is negotiable. Even though it's there right there in black and white, you can always put an X on the side and negotiate something, some options that both parties agree to. But sometimes you have to change, even though you have agreed to a situation, you negotiated that you're in, that you're going to stay in this thing for 30 years or 15 years, but something happened. There's a hiccup. Now you need to ensure that you understand that you can renegotiate. It's not the end of the world. And I think Charlie mentioned last time about cutting that anchor. So that anchor on that boat to secure you in the storm, holding you there in place. But remember, that anchor can also bring your boat down. You bring it on water and it's about to go under. You need to cut that anchor and leave it, and so you can float. And so welcome back this evening to Ross. Ross, thank you for coming in again this evening. And go ahead, if you want to reintroduce, maybe our audience forgot a little bit about you. If you want to introduce yourself back to our audience, if they don't know you, they don't get to know more about you. And let's get started.
Absolutely, Larry. Well, thank you so much for having me back. My name is Ross Levin. I'm the executive director of Roots of Mankind. We are a nonprofit located in Greenbelt, Maryland, where we serve people and do financial empowerment, financial literacy, loss mitigation services, as well as first-time homebuyer education, and help people protect their generational wealth that they've amassed or they're trying to amass.
Super, Ross. And so let's open it up with a little bit of recap, what we talked about last week. And so to show them that, to demonstrate there is two sides to this coin. And so they all, our audience that wasn't here last week, if we can bring them in. So we talked last week about people that could be facing mortgage crisis. And we was talking about a situation where I'm going to use the term curable, where they had some options that they could have in reference to satisfying the agreement on both sides and keeping their property. Can we just discuss some of those curable options that we talked about last week?
Sure, Larry. What we spoke about last week are for options for people to retain their home. And some of those options we talked about, for example, one is a forbearance. A forbearance is a reduction of the monthly payment that the homeowner is supposed to pay. Say, for example, we spoke last week, a payment of $2,000 a month for a mortgage payment. If they're going through a financial crisis or having a hardship, then the mortgage company may allow them to make less than the $2,000 a month for the monthly payment. That would be what's called the forbearance.
Okay. All right. Now, Charlene, is that forbearance forever?
No. We're going to tell y'all what we always say. Forbear means to delay. So forbear does not mean to forgive. So it just means we just giving you a little time to get yourself together, but run me my money when you do.
All right. Super. All right, Ross, what is one of the other options there?
Another option would be a loan modification. And Charlene can explain about a loan modification, how that would go ahead and modify the terms of the loan. And that, of course, would be for someone who has a long-term hardship. We had spoken about hardships, defining them in terms of loss mitigation. A short-term hardship would be something 3 to 6 months. Long-term hardship would be something longer than 6 months.
Super. And I know that now you also have to understand, just because your neighbor got one or your relative got one, don't necessarily yours is going to be the same. So I think that was a big term. Everyone wanted to come in and get a mod, a loan mod. And so, Charlene, you're welcome to expand on the loan mod.
Yes, a loan mod is sometimes people confuse that with the refinance. And I say the easiest way to kind of distinguish between the two is usually a refi is going to cost you something. A loan modification normally does not, in terms of funds out of the individual's pocket, And so the other difference when we talk about a loan mod is definitely going to restructure the terms of your original note. And so one of the things I think, Ross, that I don't know if you see this, but sometimes people think a loan mod automatically means that there's going to be a reduction in monthly payment, and that is not necessarily true. So a loan mod really just simply means that they have restructured the terms from your initial note or when you initially purchased the property. But it doesn't necessarily mean that because you're approved for a loan modification that automatically I got approved for a loan modification. How come my payment went up? Or my neighbor's payment went down, but I got it and my payment went up. And so again, a loan modification just simply means that they are restructuring the initial terms of the note from when you originally purchased the property.
Charlene, you said that was excellent how you described that, because often I speak with a lot of homeowners who say, well, I want a modification, and they automatically assume that the monthly payment is going to be lower than what they currently pay, because naturally, if they can't afford to pay what they're paying currently, they think that the payment's going to be lower. However, that's not always the case. And that's why it's so important for people to work with a HUD certified housing counselor to be able to explain what the terms they're getting into. Say, for example, if the loan term has gone longer, the amortization schedule, or say, for example, the interest rate may have changed. Or say, for example, in our next example of a loss mitigation option for retention is a loan deferral, going ahead and setting aside a certain percentage of the loan amount, the dollar amount of the loan. Say they went ahead and they put in suspense in a non-bearing interest account $60,000, that may reduce the monthly payment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, super. All right.
And then I just want to say that too, on that, we had mod season, so to speak. And, you know, if we look at us in this industry, we had mod season. So the first real big season was when we had the Making Homes Affordable program. That's when we seen a lot of loan modifications. And I think people, especially those who experienced a modification during that time frame, and now they're possibly in a hardship now, when we were in that season, our rates for our loan modifications was 2 and 3 and 4%. Our average modification rate now is like 6%. So when you have an individual who is experiencing a hardship that may have experienced one in the past, and they're thinking like, hey, I remember when I got it in 2012, you know, my payment could have went from, which I did see a lot of payments going from, you know, 2000 to 16 to some 7, some 1,000 or whatever. I have individuals now whose payment went from 16 to 32. So some of them have doubled. So that's really important for you to look at what we call the waterfall, is what you were speaking of Ross. And so it's like he said, it's important for you to have someone who is knowledgeable in these terms and the waterfall, so you can understand the difference between then and now.
All right. All right. Okay. And so, Ross, now we talked about some of those options that the individual could, go through if they are going to retain their home. And so let's open this up for tonight. We're talking about when they're, talk about liquidation options, or when it's in that situation where they cannot stay in their home. And so you want to talk about that threshold when you come into a situation where you may not be able to keep the home?
Sure, Larry. I'm happy to do that. So what happens if if the mortgage payment's not affordable, or the hardship is long-term, as we had talked about, the difference between the long-term and short-term hardships. If the homeowner's not able to make those monthly payments, they would have to go ahead and look at non-retention options. One non-retention option would be a regular sale. What a regular sale means, or a standard sale, some people say, is where you owe less on the house than what the house is worth. So in other words, it would be what's called an equity sale, where you would list your house for sale with a real estate agent, market the property for sale, and then you would go to closings, market the house, and you would be able to get proceeds from the sale of your house and then move on. Go ahead, Larry.
Yeah, and I just want to stay on that for a while. Yes. And so with that, what are some of the indicators that may get to a person to that position where they would say, okay, how will they know they have equity? What are some of the team members and professionals that they can um, um, confide in? And of course, we know the relationship they should have with a housing counselor, but what would help them get to that position that they need to list
Sure,
their house?
Larry. So what they would do, the first thing they would do is they would need to contact a licensed real estate agent. A real estate agent then would be able to go ahead and determine what the current market value of the property is. That's really the first step to see what the house is worth.
Okay.
Homeowners shouldn't go. We talk about this in the home buying class. Do not go to Zillow or do not go to these automated valuation models, is what they're called, AVMs, where
Mhm.
they go ahead and they take houses in a specific neighborhood, and then they assume that your house is in the same exact condition um, based upon the square footage and age, so on and so forth, where they gather up all that information from public records. So it's important. The first step really is in a regular sale to go ahead and find out what the market value of the property is.
Okay. That's super, super. All right. Yes. And so that would be a regular sale and listen at home. And so what tell us a little bit more about that. What is the next option we have?
Well, with the regular sale, it's important because, as we spoke last week,
Hmm.
homeowners sometimes they may have forgot that they got a loan modification, say for example, during the COVID era, if you will, and they had some type of hardship where a subordinate deed of trust was put on their property, meaning that up to 24 months of payments pursuant to HUD guidelines, they allowed for a partial claim during the COVID era. And a homeowner may have forgot, oh my gosh, I
Hmm.
went ahead and took out, I was past due in 24 months worth of payments. At that point in time, they went ahead and signed a deed of trust. So it's important for the next um, for the next professional, and that's a title company, to go ahead and have a title company go ahead and do a search, which in every jurisdiction in Maryland, D.C., and Virginia, there's what's called land records, to go ahead and search land records to make sure that what the homeowner believes is owing on the property is actually what's owing on the property, Larry.
Okay. Yes. And so yes, that's great. And so with that, do this person that they are in the house with, that lender, what do they really get a say so in reference to this sale? Or
Well, Larry, the next topic or the next liquidation option or non-curable
Mhm.
option would be what's called a short sale.
Okay.
And what a short sale is that's when the homeowner owes more on the property than what the property is currently worth. By definition, it's you're shorting the lender. So
Okay.
that's what's called a short sale.
Okay. All right. And so here you talking about you shorten the lender, but the regular sale you was talking about, and so we don't have to get involved with the lender on the equity sale.
On the equity sale, we do. What the homeowner needs to do is, or their licensed professional or title company needs to order a payoff. The
Hmm.
payoff then will determine exactly what amount is owing on the property.
Okay.
And then I want to interject and say this as well. Even though it's a regular sale, if we're talking about foreclosure prevention, I still think it's best for the borrower, for the housing counselor, to still have active communication with the servicer, because by possibly sending over that listing agreement and showing the intent, like, hey, they're in Virginia, you have to be 120 days in the rear before they begin that process, right? A lot of times they're way past that by the time they call us and be like, hey, it's time to wave the white flag. Well, because of that, I still think, even though it's a regular sale, still notify the servicer, still submit the listing agreement. If you get a purchase contract, still send that over. No, you're not asking them for their permission, but you're showing them the intent. And maybe, because keep in mind, guys, that ball is still rolling on that other hand. Like, they're still moving forward with foreclosure. You know what I'm saying? So you still could get a sell date throughout this process. The minute that you become you are in default, that servicer and that investor still can move forward with foreclosure. They still can put a sell date on the property and all that good stuff. So it's important that you have a active line of communication with your listing agent, your housing counselor, and your servicer throughout this process, so that maybe, not necessarily going to say it's going to stop it, but at least they see that the intent is, I'm trying to resolve this situation, versus lips are shut. They have no idea that you're moving forward to liquidate. And the next thing you know, you don't have a purchase contract, but you sure do got a sell date, because it still can happen.
Yes. So it really sounds good to know who the whole team, because remember, we're talking about you're in a contract. And so, continue to open your mail, continue to receive the phone calls, and don't make promises that don't make any additional promises that you can't keep.
Because you
already got into one. So don't start making any other promises, but you can always say, I'm gonna get back with you, and let's set let's do another follow-up. And while you're still working with these other members of your team and getting things set up for you to transition. And so Ron, she was talking about the short sale, and I think we was joking about that on the Lunch and Learn with what the definition of short. And so talk to our audience about a short sale. I mean, why isn't everybody so happy to just give up everything in a short sale?
Well, Larry, and every short sale is different. Just like everybody, we spoke last week, everybody has different situations. Everybody's situation is unique. With that said, every lender that has a loan on the property where there's a short sale, their guidelines and programs may be different. So it's very important for the viewers here that are watching tonight to know that not every short sale is exactly the same. Say, for example, some investors, may not go ahead and allow you to market the property for a long period of time, because the loan and we're talking about people in distress, people that are currently behind on their mortgage. So it's very important for homeowners to know that if they're behind on their mortgage, obviously we spoke about the housing counselor. Okay. We talked about the liquidation marketing the property. Now we need to talk about that with that contract, what legal ramifications does the lender have, right? With a short sale. With a short sale, it's not just, hey, we're going to list the property for sale and go ahead and sell the property and shake hands and walk away and not owe any debt. That's why it's important to have someone on your team, an attorney, because as a housing counselor, housing counselors cannot give legal advice. And it's very important for us to go ahead and make sure the viewers understand that reviewing the contract and knowing that in a short sale, there could be what's called a deficiency. That deficiency balance, again, as an example, say the property, the loan amount is say $400,000, and balance has gone up, and now values still have gone up, but because of non-payments and delinquencies, let's just say that it's $350,000 that the lender's going to get. So there's a deficiency, or a short, if you will, of $50,000. Very important for you viewers to know that $50,000, each servicer, each bank, each lender may go ahead and view that a different way. They may go ahead and want to pursue the deficiency because usually, most of the time, financials have to be provided if there's an ability to pay. Or even so, if they say, hey, we understand you had a hard time, but there could be tax implications with the monies with a short sale. And that's why it's important to work with, again, an attorney, a tax advisor, and a licensed real estate agent, and of course, a housing counselor.
Yes. And speaking of a housing counselor, and I know that, we have to demonstrate that hardship. And so individuals sometimes may have some difficulties in actually, saying they have a hardship because they may, again, someone else did this and I know somebody else did that in my situation like this. And so, Charlene, in reference to helping that homeowner demonstrate that hardship, and can you explain to them, what could be really considered a hardship?
Gotta be destitute. I mean, you have to show that sometimes people show 401ks and investment accounts and this bank account when they say, hey, but this money is for this though. You know what I mean? This, I have this money, but that wasn't the intention. I wasn't using it for that, or I was using it for when I retire, I was using it for this or using it for that. And unfortunately, in terms of when we talk about investors, and I just tell people, let's just have some real talk. If I owed you money, okay, and you said, well, Charlene, let me see what you got, and I show you my bank statement, and in my bank statement, I owed you $10,000, but my bank statement shows that, I got 11. You're gonna be like, oh, that's all right. You ain't gotta necessarily pay me back because you only be left with $1,000. Nah, you're gonna be like, girl, you don't give me my money. That's how the bank is looking at it. Like, they're not looking at it like, well, if I give you if you give me all of this, then that may leave you with 27 cents. So I don't want to leave her with 27 cents. No, you just gonna have 27 cents. So when we talk about showing a hardship, that's what we're talking about. It can't be like the borrower, have the funds and the means to resolve this. But you just don't want to because, Larry and I, Ross, we know the importance of retirement. We talk about it all the time. We understand it. We get it. But unfortunately, what did Larry talk about in the very beginning? You signed a purchase. You signed a contract. And so within that contract, Larry, sometimes you go over the layman's terms of the promissory note, deed of trust. You haven't done that in a long time. But layman's terms, it says if I get hit by a car and my mortgage payment is due tomorrow, I'm gonna make my mortgage payment. It says if I get sick, Larry used to do this whole thing about this is what this piece of paper means right here. You know what I'm saying? And so with that being said, when we talk about a hardship, you gotta put your money where your mouth is. Like, they need to see an actual hardship in order for them to move forward. Now, I think we all got a little spoiled with COVID, because when COVID came around, we didn't have to show hardship. All I had to do is say I was affected by COVID. That's all they needed to hear. And we're going to put you in this program, or we're going to put you in that program. And that's that. Well, I want to say it was April of last year. I don't know, Ross, in terms of these days. I know it was last year where they changed it. Now I have to show proof of my hardship. I can't just say it anymore. So long story short, you got to be broke. You got to be on a top ramen, oodles and noodle diet in order for this to work. You have to show proof to that investor that you have no means to repay this debt.
Right. And I'm glad you had said that, because, again, everybody's hardship, everybody's situation is different. In working with a housing counselor, going through budget counseling, going through exactly what caused someone to fall behind is so important, and that's why FHA, as Charlene had said, changed their guidelines to now a hardship is required. You have to show proof of the hardship. You can't just write a letter and say I'm sick. and I can't make the payments. If you're sick, you're going to have to show, say, for example, medical bills, so on and so forth. So that's why, a hardship to prove a hardship is what is required for FHA. However, there are other investors and other programs that do require or may require additional documentation.
Like we'll say USDA. USDA, I have to show paycheck stubs. I have to show difference in the paycheck stubs. So,
Yep.
Or I have to show W-2. So if I said that I experienced a reduction in income, now I got to show you my 2025, or excuse me, let's just, for example, I got to show you my 2024 W-2s, and then I have to show you my 2025, and there better be a difference. It can't be where I said that I took a reduction in income, but my paycheck looks like did you really? Because you look like you got an extra $200-$300. So you physically now have to show that in either the paycheck stubs or either in the W-2s.
Absolutely, I agree with you. That's the way it is. That's the way it is now.
Yes. So Ross, here on this short sale, basically you're saying you're going to have lender approval.
Right. So with the short sale, and again, every investor or every lender is different. Typically, in a short sale, what a lender is requiring, again, we spoke about the hardship, right? The homeowner is going to have to submit what's called a mortgage assistance application, or an RMA, a request for mortgage assistance, along with some may require financial documentation. Say, for example, paycheck stubs, or if they're retired or self-employed, a profit and loss, or an award letter from Social Security or retirement. The next thing that they're going to require is obviously the financial documents, tax returns, and then they're going to go ahead and they're going to ask for a copy of the listing agreement. You, of course, would list the property with a licensed real estate professional. Some investors, say, for example, with FHA, they do require the property to be listed with a licensed professional.
So I can't do for sale by owner?
No, unfortunately, Larry, that's not the way it works. It's that you can't go ahead, put a sign in your yard, and then go ahead and have a for sale by owner. That's not the way that this works here.
Okay.
So you have to have it. And what I was just about to say is there has to be a marketing period. So you can't just go ahead, list your property for sale, go ahead and have a contract, if you will, an offer made by somebody, and take the property off the market a day or 2 days or hours after someone lists the property. It has to be marketed in the multiple list service, is what real estate agents use, for a period of anywhere up to 14 days, 7 to 14 days. Some may require longer, so that the property can be seen by everybody, and that the property is being sold for fair market value. So it's not a pocket sale, if you will.
Yes. And it's been a while since I really paid very much attention to the short sale, but isn't it also the transaction to be at arm's length as well?
Yeah, Larry, I'm glad you brought that up. You can't go ahead and do a short sale and sell the property to your relative or someone that you know or someone that you have a relationship with. It has to be what you had said, Larry, arm's length, meaning there's no relationship. And in fact, there's an affidavit, say, for example, with FHA sale, or say, for example, with a Fannie Mae short sale, or even a VA short sale, where they have the buyer and seller and real estate agents and title agents, everybody involved in the transaction, sign an affidavit stating that there's been no relationship, that all the offers have been submitted to the short sale lender, and that the property has been marketed for fair market value. And what's most important is that there are no side deals, that the owner of the property who's in distress doesn't have a side deal and is going to go ahead and move back in the property or buy the property back at a future date.
Okay. Yes. And I think that's very important. When we speak of the lender, and speaking of the lender is at a deficit here. So they are are short in reference to what was owed on the property. And so the homeowner cannot be in a situation where they're going to be able to gain out of that. Yes. Okay. And so what are some of the other things that are in this modification package to get one successfully across the line?
Sure. We spoke about the listing agreement. There's a sales contract. The sales contract, of course, that would be the purchase agreement, spelling out the terms of of what the buyer's willing to pay for the property.
Mhm.
There's also a lender, a pre-approval letter, or they call it a proof of funds letter. Say, for example, someone who's not using a lender and someone who wants to, say, buy the property and purchase it in cash. That's not unusual in today's world. And they would require a proof of funds. Say, for example, someone's buying the property, say the offer price is $100,000, and the buyer then would, of course, need the $100,000, plus they would need closing costs. So they then would need a bank statement showing that they have enough funds in the bank to close, or if they're not paying cash, and they're actually getting financing, a lender letter or a lender pre-approval letter is what's required.
Okay, that's good. Yes. Okay. And what are some of the other items that may be in reference to title and making sure that is?
Sure, Larry. That's actually, I'm glad you brought that up. Too often, I find out that we've worked with many homeowners in distress, and they're not able to keep the home, and then they go ahead and they submit the short sale. All of a sudden, there's other liens on the property, so it's important for a homeowner during the short sale process to go ahead and get a title search, as well as to have the title company prepare what's now called an ALTA combined settlement statement, or formerly known as a HUD-1. And the reason why that's important is because that goes through and itemizes all of the closing costs, all of the transactional costs, and by having a title search done ahead of time shows what liens are on the property. That's really important to have that HUD-1 or that ALTA settlement statement.
Yes, that sounds good. And yes, and so I know
that
that
can stop it. Y'all just need to understand that can, even though it's a short sale, it could still stop the transaction. It still could foreclose.
Yes. And yes. And so, and also there, we're speaking of the lender, and we also talk about the title. And so what are the individuals have to be aware of is some of those other lien positions, some of those other positions and how they are treated, and what could be, still your relationship with this situation going through, and how you still could be at a deficit.
You absolutely, Larry, you could be on the hook. And what's important is that say, for example, the first lender is being shorted. We spoke about that. There's also could be subordinate liens. Say, for example, there could be a second mortgage. Say, for example, there could be homeowners association liens or condo liens or even money judgment liens that attach to the property. All of those have to be negotiated. And again, with a short sale, there's no set amount on what the first lender is going to get, the second lender, or any subordinate lien holders. And it's important for the viewers to know today that every short sale with a subordinate lien, there could be a different amount, or they may not allow any subordinate liens to be paid.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And so in a situation, I know we're not attorneys, and I'm not asking, hopefully not that giving advice in reference to that. Well, what about some of those things that were not, settled in the short sale, are not negotiated to be settled, and then you have some things that are lingering out there. Is there some other options that the person that may be advised to do after they experience this, and they still have outstanding judgments that they can't settle?
Sure. If there are liens and judgments, they would have to get releases of those in order for the property to go to closing. And it's important in a short sale process for a homeowner to consult with an attorney that specializes in short sales or specializes in bankruptcy, to know exactly what options and what the lender may do, because or what the subordinate lien holder may require if there's just a partial release. Say, for example, someone has a Maryland state tax lien or a Virginia state tax lien or federal tax lien. All of that may be able to be negotiated. In other words, to allow the property to go to closing, but afterwards, after the closing, those debts the homeowner has are just partially released as to the real estate.
Yes. Okay. And I like what you said in reference to the attorney seeking that counsel to someone that specializes in that area. And so, in your HUD approved agencies, when we give a reference, basically options in reference to whether it's legal services and things of that sort, we're going to ensure that it's going to be a list of individuals that specializes in, mitigating, whether it's property or in the bankruptcy, and someone that specializes in that area. You're not going to give you a corporate attorney that's going to say, we're going to take care of this bankruptcy, and that's not what he does. And so bankruptcy, dealing with real estate releases. And so you will definitely want to pay attention to that and get get referrals and advice from someone that specializes in that area. Yes. Super. All right, Ross. And we could talk about these short sales for a long time. There's a lot of entities in there in reference to that short sale. But let's talk about another option that they may have when they have to liquidate.
Sure, Larry. The next option for someone to consider if the short sale is not doesn't go through is to consider what's called the deed in lieu of foreclosure. And what that is that's when the lender goes ahead and allows the homeowner, again, the homeowner would need permission from the lender for this loss mitigation option to go ahead and basically, just like when the homeowner purchased the property, they signed the deed. Instead of the mortgage company foreclosing, they're signing the deed in lieu of them foreclosing. Now, what's important for people to know with a deed in lieu of foreclosure is that with a deed in lieu of foreclosure, there's a title search that the lender does. The title search would make sure that there are no other subordinate liens on the property and no judgments that would attach to the property. Otherwise, the deed in lieu option or deed in lieu of foreclosure, that option may not be available because the lender is wanting the deed free and clear of any liens, subordinate liens, judgment liens. So a deed in lieu of foreclosure sometimes is an option, and with the deed in lieu of foreclosure, sometimes, not every time, because every situation is different, the homeowner may be able to get some relocation assistance. And we didn't talk about that with the short sale, but in a short sale context, if the lender may or may not offer relocation assistance for the homeowner to move. Similar to with the deed in lieu, relocation assistance may be available.
Okay. Yeah, and we'll go to that assistance as well. And something that's crossed up on that deed in lieu, because it can sound better than some of the other options, but the lender do have to approve, and sometime that they may ask that you list the property.
I was gonna say, so
Yeah.
that is one of the
Yes, go ahead,
that part.
Charlie.
That's what I was gonna say. So when we talk about deed in lieu, that's almost in priority or options. That's like going towards your last option because you do have to show proof that you had that home listed. I want to say it was 120 days that you had to show that you tried to liquidate the property before you try to give it back. But you do, yes, Larry, you're 100% correct. You do have to show that you tried.
Yes, super. And so, and again, it's one of those options that you definitely have to be on board with your lender in the services for them to agree with this option. Yes, and so so you, I think, Ross, you was leading towards, sometime we call it rental assistance and things of that sort, which I think a lot of individuals, if they knew about this, they would probably go ahead and let go rather, because some people they sit there and cling on to things so long because one, they may not feel that they can afford to move. And so what are some of the things that that can assist them in transitioning?
You talk about cash for keys.
Cash for keys, or with a deed in lieu. It's called really relocation assistance. The cash for keys is where the deed in lieu doesn't work. We just went through that option. And one other thing with the deed in lieu is it's important to know that with a deed in lieu, the mortgage company may or may not go ahead and forgive the debt. So there may be a deficiency balance, or they may have the right to pursue the deficiency. Again, we went through those examples earlier. Basically, all it is you owe more money than what the house is worth. They do a deed in lieu. You're still liable, even although they're willing to do the deed in lieu. The homeowner may still be liable for may have a deficiency. As far as the next option we were talking about for relocation, some homeowners may say, "Hey, the heck with it! I'm sick of my home. I just want to give it back to the bank, and let's just go ahead and do a deed in lieu and not do the short sale." Charlene spoke about that. The next thing is the cash for keys. If things don't work out, you're not able to sell the property. You're not able to go ahead and through a short sale or a regular sale. You're not don't qualify for a deed in lieu. We went through those options. Cash for keys is certainly an option where a lender may go ahead and give a homeowner cash in exchange, just like it sounds, cash for the keys to the property. And usually in a context like that, what has to happen is the home has to be left usually in broom swept condition. So that property, you can't go ahead and leave all your furniture in there and all the trash you don't want. The property has to be left in broom swept condition. And there's an agreement. There's a legal agreement conveying the property back to the lender, meaning that they can have use and possession of the property. And that's, again, a legal agreement that spells out the terms. You turn the keys over, and they'll give you money to go ahead and move from the property. That can range. Every situation is different. I have seen, at least here in Maryland, I've seen cash for keys as much as $10,000. So it's not just a few $100s or a few thousand. $10,000 to be able to move is a whole lot of money.
Yes, that is a significant amount. And again, it's to help you with the transition. And so that is option they need to be aware of. Yeah. Go ahead, Shirley.
Yeah, I was going to say that could definitely help with the movers, security deposit, first month's rent. And then, during this time frame, regardless of, you still should be trying to save something. When you're not making this payment, you still should be saving something. And we don't care if it's $100, $500, something should be set aside for you to transition from a homeowner back to a tenant, because what did Larry say last week? In 3 years, you're considered a first-time home buyer again, so.
Correct. And I know making that decision, when you go from renter to homeowner, you weigh those budget items and those what sacrifices and things of that sort. Where is when you're getting ready to move out of the house, is some things that you need to sacrifice, but you do need to think of a plan in reference to no landlord is just going to let you walk into their place with no security deposit and no first month's rent. And so sometimes your credit has already been damaged. And so landlords do pull credit for rental for tenants. And if the credit is damaged, then you're going to have to find we're going to call a friendly landlord, or someone that's willing to work with someone with damaged credit. And there may be some other things on your public record. And so be prepared to pay a healthy security deposit or a number of months of advance rent if you go through the situation. So money needs to be set aside. Put it in a sock or whatever you want to do with that, but you need to set aside money. If you haven't paid your mortgage a few times, there's some budget items that you have not paid, so that you should be setting money aside so to help with that transition. But that cash for keys, that is a negotiated item. So consider that negotiation, because you're really going to need it in your transition as well.
We're short on time, but I want to say, Larry, you can negotiate. There's a lot of stuff within a short sale that you still can. You can negotiate those legal fees. You can negotiate those late fees. You can contact the trustee, and your listing agent can ask, can some of this stuff be waived to make this transaction work? Because there's a number that they're looking for. And so you definitely can negotiate that.
True.
Absolutely.
All right. Okay, Raj, you want to just go through and compare those options there to tie this thing up?
Sure. I'm happy to do so. So with a regular sale, the equity sale, that's obviously something that someone can do themselves without requiring third-party approval or requiring lender approval. There's, of course, the short sale, which does, of course, require some type of approval from a third party. And then, of course, if you're not able to go ahead and pursue that option, the next option we spoke about was a deed in lieu. That option, of course, does require lender approval. And then we spoke about the last option, which, of course, is the cash for keys. And that's after, actually, so it could or could not be after after the foreclosure. It may not be. But all of that stuff, all those are non-retention items, or we call non-curable items. And all of that information is important for people to know that are in distress.
Super. All right. And again, let's talk about that team. What are some of the some of these entities and individuals they should start gathering? And of course, we put Housing Council on top. I know, always.
Of course, number one.
We the gateway. Okay, Housing Council.
Right.
So, what are some of the other members of that team?
The other people you on your team is a qualified real estate agent, someone who understands short sales, or someone that understands working with someone in distress. That's one person. The next person, of course, is the title company. The title company is the company that does all the research, conducts the closing. There's also the third person would be an attorney, to go ahead and have an attorney that specializes and knows about either short sales, or knows about bankruptcy, or knows about a debt settlement, something like that, because you surely want to work with someone who's qualified and knows the ins and outs of how to go ahead and help you solve your problem. Because your problem, once it's solved, then you're going to be, like Larry had said and Charlene had said, you're going to be able to purchase a home. This is just a minor setback.
Yes, super. All right. And so I want you guys, our audience out there to make sure that you continue to follow us. And Ross is going to be here to work with us in a few of these things. And we're more than likely going to put on some clinics, but we have to get the some other team players here in reference to your services. So if your services are out there and the lenders are out there, if you'd like to come together and put on some mortgage clinics, we're willing to do that. But we need some partners to make this happen. So we'll be working together on this. But Ross, if someone wanted to reach out and follow what you're doing or reach out to you, how can I give us your contact information?
Sure, Larry. The best way to contact us, or contact me, should I say, is either by phone. Our phone number is 301-899-6800. Again, that phone number, so you can grab a pen, is 301-899-6800. Or if you want to shoot us an email, the email address is help, HELP, at ROMKIND.org. So that's help at romkind.org. And you also can go to our website, romkind.org, as well.
All right. Well, thank you, Ross. And we expect, of course, to see you around a lot. I know you're going to be back, and we got a few workshops to be working together.
Look forward to it, Larry.
All right. I definitely.
We do have some upcoming. We do have a mortgage workshop coming up, actually, Larry.
Do you have what's the date? That one is specifically for one servicer. Is that correct?
Yes. So for those of you who are watching this conversation and your servicer so happens to be Freedom Mortgage, they will be having a servicing event on the 24th of this month. So that's really coming up in a couple of days, next week, next Tuesday to be exact. And so you definitely want to reach out to your servicer to find out how you can go ahead and register for that event. But if your servicer is Freedom Mortgage, they will be having a foreclosure prevention clinic on March 24th.
Yeah, and we're helping them to outreach, because I'm quite sure that if you are delinquent on your mortgage, if you missed 30 or more than definitely 60 days or more on your mortgage, you should have gotten some correspondence from Freedom Mortgage to invite you to this workshop. And so we're speaking of Freedom Mortgage, but there's other mortgage companies out there now that they're sending the information to let you know if there's events coming up in reference to mortgage claims, but also letting you know to contact a HUD-approved housing counseling agency. And so read the message. If whether you're in this area or not, if you would like to speak with a housing counselor agency that's in your area, it'll have a HUD website. You go to the HUD website and put your zip code in, and it'll pull up a HUD agency in your area. However, we are HUD approved, and so it crosses all state lines. And so no matter where you're located, we can provide the services. And loss mitigation is one of those services, because you have lenders and servicers that are spread out throughout the U.S. And so what happens in Virginia, we're able to help people even in California, in Texas, and in all the parts in between. Okay, Charlene, go ahead real quick, upcoming events.
So our upcoming events, our next first-time homebuyers class is going to be, again, April 18th. That's going to be located at Woodbridge at the McCourt Building, the Powell's Creek. So when you come in, just ask the security guard, but it's the Powell Creek room. Again, that's going to be April 18th. And then before that, as Larry just said, and myself, our next event would be that servicing event with Freedom Mortgage. So if you have your loan with Freedom Mortgage, you want to reach out to them, because I do think it does require registration. If I'm correct, it does require registration. And so those are our next event. And then, of course, we have our Community Appreciation Day, which is going to be on April 25th. So for those of you who have your business, want to showcase your business, please get in contact with First Home Alliance. We do have numerous sponsorships available.
All right. Well, thanks, everyone. Thank you, Ross. Thanks, Charlene. Thanks for our audience for joining us this evening. Visit our website at firsthomealliance.org. And continue to follow us on social media. Make sure you like and subscribe. You all have a good evening, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.